Okay, so welcome back to class. So let's talk money, right? Let's talk about what your credit score needs to look like, whether or not you need good credit, and I would say yes, you do, right? Where will the money come from, loans and loan types, and we want to talk about cash to purchase, how much you're going to need to put down, and let's just go from there. So let's just talk money. So if you're going to be borrowing the money from the bank, which traditionally most people are, right? You want to leverage your money and use the bank's money if possible. Now, if you have cash to put down, definitely you can use cash, but I say use leverage. And the only reason I say that is, one is if you borrow the money from the bank, then you can pay the money back over time from the profit from the home. So if you're going to flip the house, when you go to sell it, then you'll pay back the portion of the loan for the money you borrowed, and then the rest is profit. If you're going to buy the house to keep it as a rental, then the tenant pays the mortgage off, because now you're able to charge the amount for the rent, plus included in there is the cost of the mortgage. So the tenant is paying it off over time. Plus, you're also going to get to depreciate the value of the property. So when you get to do depreciation with your tax professional, then you're even going to be able to deduct expenses like repairs and taxes and trash and lawn, whatever it is you do for the property that you spend money on. You're going to be able to write that stuff off. Interest on your loan, you're going to be able to write that stuff off. So most people should, if they can and their credit is strong enough, borrow the money from the bank, because you'll be able to leverage the bank's money instead of using your own money. Okay, so do that before spending cash. Now, if you're one of those people like my husband that's like, no, I don't like loans, I want to use cash, you can do that, right? Just factor in, okay, this is the amount, and cash is king, right? So I will say that whenever you're going to write a cash offer, it's a stronger offer, because people know that they're not dealing with appraisers. They're not dealing with normally repair requests when someone's paying cash. So they're not going to have to worry about that person falling out of financing when they have their own money to put down. Now, it doesn't have to be your cash, right? So we can say that you can always partner with other people. Maybe that person is bringing the cash and you're bringing the sweat equity, right? You're going to do a lot of the work. You're going to paint. You're handy, right? So if you think about having a partner, you should have everything in writing. I'll tell you why. So the very first house that we ever flipped was with my sister, my husband, and my sister's fiance at the time. So everybody was going to put in a certain amount of money. So my sister's fiance was the one that had a VA loan that he could use. So we were going to let him be the one to get the loan, and then everybody else, my sister, my husband, and I, were going to pay closing costs, the money you need to borrow the money you need to put down to borrow the money from the bank, depending on what type of loan you're using. So we needed 3%. So we all were going to put down, and did put down the 3%. The only challenge with that was, I told my sister, well, what if things don't work out with you all, right? What if you break up and now y'all don't like each other, and now we're all in this transaction together? So you want to think about the people that you go into business with. Are you all in it for the long term? Are you all friends? My daddy told me, when I was before I even went and opened my very first business, my daddy said, don't go into business with friends and family. I live by that. And anytime I've broken that rule, it's been a hot mess. Seriously. Anytime I've broken the rule, I've lost a lot of money. So we ended up, I forewent the advice of my father, listening, saying, okay, well, it's my sister, it's her fiance. I mean, I know I'm going into business with Marvin. Like, that's a given, right? I'm not worried about going into business with him. The minute that we all went into business together, so Marvin and I were the ones that were going to do the sweat equity. So we would go over there, and Marvin primed the walls. We would paint. We would go at night. So when we got off work, and my husband was in social services at the time, doing social work, type work. He ran group homes at the time. So he had long days, and he had stressful days. And then I was running a salon. We had a toddler, which was Caleb. He was maybe 4 or 5, and we had a baby, right? So we're sacrificing to go over to this house with a toddler and a baby when we get off work, to paint, do whatever we needed to do. My sister and her fiance would show up willy-nilly, right? No offense to them, but they didn't have the same work ethic as it related to doing the physical labor of the house. They had put their money in. So what ended up happening was her fiance hired a contractor. And we all were like, I don't feel so good about him. He seems a little janky, right? So he's like, no, he's cool peoples. So we're very important to pick your team. He's cool peoples. He does a good job. So the guy started out okay. So as we would go over there, a week passed, 2 weeks passed. This guy's not there. And now he's taking apart different projects of the house. The house is all torn up, right? Because there were multiple things that needed to be done. Stuff was everywhere. He's nowhere to be found. I mean, welcome to, this is what you're going to deal with in real estate investing. You're going to deal with contractors, and you're going to go through multiple contractors before you find your tribe, right? Hopefully you'll hit off the first one that you hire is perfect, because maybe it's your family member, somebody you worked with before, and you'll have a great relationship. We didn't. We were just building our team. So the guy didn't show up. So one day my husband was like, hey, give me this guy's number. My husband's from the country, right? And he don't play that. And he's very handy. So my husband was already doing contract type work. He's like very handy around building things, tearing down and building back up, and he's very systems oriented. So when you're invested in a property, we're going to talk about it later, like what do you tear out first, put it back, keep your workspace clean, all that stuff. So the guy comes over there to meet with us, and he has an attitude. So as we're asking him, my husband is just like, hey, you know, when are you going to be finished? When are you coming back over here to start? What's going on? Give us a scenario of where we are and what we're doing and how fast we're going to get there. Because mind you now, the first payment is coming due on the mortgage, and we still got to get the house ready to flip. So the guy starts getting kind of mouthy, and so my husband puts his hand on the guy's shoulder, and he's like, listen, I think it was like he's facing the guy. He puts his hand on his shoulder. When I saw him touch the man, I was like, this could go either way, right? Because I call my husband Keto, like country ghetto, country crazy, right? He put his hand on his shoulder, and he said, listen, this is what we expect. This is what is going to happen. Mind you guys, he had been paid up front, which you never do, right? But my sister's fiance, we were letting him handle this part of the business. So the guy, we told him, this is what we expect you to do. You've already been paid. This is it. The guy left. The guy said, okay, he agreed, he left, never came back, never showed up. So we refused to pay him the rest of the money. He took us to court. All four of us took us to small claims court. Do you know that even though we could prove to the judge with pictures, with evidence, with everything that he has said he was going to do, had been paid for and didn't do, we still had to pay him? $1,600, I think it was. We were PO'd. Ooh, we were hot, like hot, like Georgia hot, like Caribbean hot, like Africa, Sahara hot, right? We had to pay him $1,600 and still go finish the work ourselves, right? So paid him the $1,600. We all decided to chalk it up as a loss. We regrouped, and Marvin and I went to work because we were like, listen, we need to get our money back. So we had kind of lost our enthusiasm around it, right? Because we just felt done wrong. But you have to get over that. It doesn't matter. Plus, we were tired because, again, we work full time. We're parents of 2 small children. My sister at that point had no children. The fiance had no children. They both did work full-time jobs, but they got off at decent hours. My schedule was up and down, so if I got off from the salon at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night, I went right over to the flip. So that began to become a bone of contention. So somewhere along the line within that month to 2 month time frame, they broke up. As I knew was going to happen, because I was like, I could see where this, I could see where this is going, right? And so they end up breaking up. Marvin and I are committed because, like, look, we want our money. We're trying to get paid. We're trying to be done with working in this working relationship, because I had violated the cardinal rule that my dad taught me before I owned my first business. I went into business with friends and family. So we ended up finishing the house. We sold it. I think I made $4,000 because I was the broker. And then I think we made another maybe $12,000 that we were all supposed to divide amongst the 4 of us. Well, the fiance had disappeared. He was bitter. And even though he lived down the street from my sister, we kept saying, hey, we want to connect with you to give you your money. To this day, he's never called us back. Right? Hadn't talked to him. We kept his $3,000 and went on about our merry little way. Paid his loan off and called it a day. Right? So that was our first experience with working with partners. So I want you to really think about, before you go into business with friends and family, how do they do business? How is their relationship? It may be better for you to do the first one on your own. Learn everything you need. And I don't mean do all the work on your own, but it may be better for you to do it on your own to figure out the processes, and because to thine own self be true. So Marvin and I, we work better together, just the two of us, hiring our contractors, managing the job site, and I'm a pit bull. He never has to go negotiate or worry about doing all that stuff, because I'm that girl. I'm going to negotiate. You're going to give me a great price. Now, I'm not going to talk people down out of their value or what they're worth, but we're going to talk about negotiations, okay? So think about, are you going to use your cash to purchase? Are you going to use somebody else's money like a partner? Are you going to get bank funds? Or are you going to do a hard money loan? I would tell you to shy away from hard money loans, right? That's a story I'll save for a different time. But with hard money loans, that's where there are people out here that are like, hey, I don't want to be involved in the deal. I don't want to be involved in the offer to purchase. I do want to look at the numbers, but whenever you find a good deal, you present it to me, it makes sense, I'm going to give you my money. I'm going to let you use my money to fund your flip, to fund your project at 15 to 28% interest. I kind of jacked that 28% number. It's like 15 to 25% interest. That's pressure, right? Because that means that the minute that they give you the money and the money is in your account, even if you've not yet started the project, and delays do happen, nothing happens on time in real estate. I live by that rule. I'll believe that rule till the Lord cracks the sky, right? It's 14 years. Very few things happen on time in real estate. 17 years investing, 14 years selling real estate on the firm. Nothing, it didn't happen, right? There's always a delay somehow, some way, whether it's the work delay, product delay, parts delay, like if you need a window or something's a special order. It's just stuff gets delayed, right? So if you're using hard money, they may allow for one extension, but that extension is going to cost you. Meaning that extension could cost you anywhere from like $1,500 to $2,000 to $3,000 to $5,000, depending on how much they are charging you on interest. And what happens, the way a hard money lender looks at it, is their money is tied up with your project, and until your project is completed, their money is not out working for them somewhere else, because their hard money lenders want to put their money to work. They want it to, it's like currency, right? It has to constantly be moving. They want their money moving and flowing. And so there's a lot of pressure when you take on a hard money loan. It's like a loan shark. I'm telling you, don't want the pressure. So think about that when you think about where you're going to get the money from and how that's going to work. Do you have a 401k plan? Do you have a retirement account? Do you have an insurance policy you can borrow against? Do you have a car you can borrow against? Do you have a paid off home, trailer, property, or anything like that you could borrow against and use as collateral? Do your parents trust you to give you the money? Do you have a rich uncle? Right? So think about places and ways that you could get the money that you could use to flip the properties that you need. Some cities and counties have money where they will allow you via a grant, which is refundable, like you gotta pay it back, a repayment grant, or sometimes it's a grant that'll be forgiven depending on who you're selling the property to. Like if you're gonna sell it to a low to moderate income family and you're creating affordable housing by flipping this property and putting it back on the market, they may let you have a forgivable grant or a grant with a low interest rate. So you want to check in your municipality, in your area where you live, do they have any type of grants or loans that can be used to rehab and repair property for you to flip for a certain demographic. We have a lot of that here in our area. And there's pluses and minuses to that, right? When you get into bed with the city and the county, there's pluses and minuses to that. So you have to think about, is that a good idea, right? Does it work for you? And you have to have strong credit, right? So if you're going to flip properties, a minimum is a 620 credit score that you need to purchase most properties, right? You can buy a home with a 580. I don't recommend it because you're not going to get favorable interest rates, number one. Number two, it's going to require a larger down payment, but you're going to need a down payment anyway. You're going to need 25% of any purchase price of what you're buying. You're going to need 25% to put down. So you need, I recommend at least having a 640 or higher credit score. So to get money from like your state your municipality, your city, your county, they want to see a 660 to 680. If you have over that, excellent. If you need to get to that, then you could definitely do that with a secured credit card. I'm gonna write myself a note to share that with you all on a different video. Okay, so you're going to want to need a 620 to 685 or higher in order to get a favorable interest rate, in order to be seen as a good credit risk. So there are two different loan types. Yeah, two different loan types that you can use for investment properties. I was thinking about something else. So, well, three technically. So you can do a home equity line of credit if you live in a home that you've owned long enough that has established equity built up in it. You could literally take out a home equity line for a low interest rate against your home, but now your home becomes the collateral. That's pressure. My husband would never agree to that. I can tell you that right now. He'd be like, no, man, you're not, and you technically don't want to do that, but a lot of people do, and you can, and I don't think it's a horrible idea. You've got to know your risk tolerance, right? So are you a risky person? Like you're someone that, I want to bet it all, right? If that's you in terms of your risk tolerance, go for it, right? Just have a strategy how you're going to pay it back. And be confident in the investment that you're purchasing. If you have a mid-range risk tolerance, you're going to need to use the bank's money, right? And if you have zero tolerance, you're going to need to pay cash, okay? So that should help you figure out kind of where you are and how to work the processes of what you're going to do. So that's one loan type, is a home equity line of credit against collateral you already own. I mean, a home that you already own, or a car. It can be anything that you own that you can pull money from, okay? The second loan type is conventional, right? So with a conventional loan, as an investor, you're going to put down 25%. During COVID, you guys, it was 5%. You could have used the 5%. Well, that's for a residential loan, but 25% is going to get you the better rate, and it's going to give you the better rate. And even though you're putting down a significant amount, that amount subtracts from the purchase price. So let's say, for kicks and giggles, you're buying a $100,000 house. It doesn't exist in this earth realm right now. Anything, they do have a $100,000 property at the time of this recording. None of them are habitable in my marketplace, right? And in California, that probably is not even a thing, right? So $100,000 times 25% down is $25,000. So you're financing $75,000. That's awesome, right? Because one, you're going to get a decent interest rate. Two, you've bought your loan down, right? So you owe less money that you're paying back. Three, you're going to have a lower mortgage payment that's lower than what you're going to be able to charge for rent. So you're building in and establishing profit right there if you've purchased it right. Because I said you make your money when? In the beginning, before you purchase the home, is how it's negotiated determines your profit on the back end. So you can't get into a transaction and be like, let's figure out where this money is coming from. Can't do that, right? So that's the second time I repeat that to you. So you can do a conventional loan. It's going to require you to put down 25%. The other loan type that you can do is the FHA loan. Now, FHA is a residential loan. It's not necessarily an investor loan. But the reason why you can use the FHA loan to purchase an investment property is because if you were going to buy a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex, right? So you can't use FHA to buy an investment property, but you can use it to buy multifamily. And the reason why, and that's if you're going to live in one side, right? Because it's a residential loan, if you're going to live in one side of the property or one part of the property in a separate roof from someone else, a duplex, a triplex, a quadplex, then you can use the FHA loan. It's considered a quadplex from one unit to 4 unit is residential, right? Once you get a 5th unit on a property under the same roof, that's commercial, okay? Residential 1 to 4 units, commercial 5 and higher, okay? So if you're going to buy a duplex and you're going to live on one side, you can use the FHA loan. I had a guy that was my client years ago. He used a VA loan and bought a duplex. He lived on one side and the tenant lived on the other side. He literally hated it. She didn't pay rent on time. She was loud. Her kids were loud. It got on his very last nerve. I'm just telling you, it always sounds good in theory. I'm going to live on one side and rent out the other side. They got on his last nerves, right? So you only need to do that for a year. After that, you can move out. Somebody else can move in. big whoop, right? So you're only making a sacrifice to do that for a year. So in order for you to use an FHA loan, I want to repeat, for 1 to 4 units, you've got to live in the house on one side of the duplex, one part of the triplex, one part of the quadplex. They're separated by walls. Under the same roof, you can use an FHA loan, and guess what? You only have to put down 3.5%. So that's a second way. Well, that's third way. So a home equity line of credit, conventional loan. The third type of loan is an FHA loan if you're going to buy multifamily under 4 units. Okay, so that's a way that you can finance and fund your real estate transaction. What's another way that you can start your flipping journey? If you don't have any money, is there an heir property in your family? And what I mean by that, do you have your grandmother's home that nobody lives in now? Do you have your aunt and uncle that left you a home? Nobody lives in it now, right? My brother passed away in January. Love him so much. And we had thought about keeping his house as a rental, right? But it was in Durham. It needed a whole lot of work, right? A lot of work. And even though we had the money that we could have put into it to fix it up and then flip it or keep it and rent it out, it was too far outside of our footprint. We're going to talk about that, like where should your properties be? So that meant that if Durham is an hour and a half from my home where I live, I'm not driving an hour and a half every day. I'd need to stay there. And I wouldn't want to stay in the house. My brother didn't pass away in the house, but I wouldn't want to stay in there because my brother, his house was haunted, right? That's another story for another day. But he knew his house was haunted and we knew his house was haunted, right? So I wasn't going to stay there. So we decided to flip it. So what we ended up doing was we ran comps. We ran comps for the property, determined what it could sell for, put it on the market for sale. I think it sat on the market for maybe 3 weeks, flipped it, and we closed it. We netted about $180,000 in profit. We divided that amongst my mom and dad, my sister and I. I felt guilty for the longest time because my brother had always wanted to refinance the property and take the money, downsize, pay off all his bills and everything else, but he passed away before that could happen. So I felt guilty about receiving the money, but then I also felt like it was his gift to us because my husband, Lord, I rebuke that in Jesus' name, right? My brother was a huge giver. So we ended up having that money. So now we could take that money from my sibling that passed away, my brother, and we could take that money and invest it in a property. We could either pay cash for a property that would need to be fixed up. We could use it as a down payment, right? So many different things. So do you have heir property or a property that's being willed to you or left to you? And then the last thing I'll share, and that'll end this video, is a lot of people in the area where I grew up, they didn't move back. A lot of kids, right? So their parents' homes, they let them go to foreclosure. They let them go back to the bank. They're just sitting empty. They didn't flip them and they didn't rent them. They're just sitting there and they're just going downhill. So think about your area, right? That's how gentrification is able to come about, because we don't necessarily go back to the areas where we grew up, take care of them, reinvest in it. Now you're seeing a big trend towards that. So think about where you grew up. Is your parents' home still there? Would it be worth it for you to do a few things to it, what we call a prehab, right? I'm going to touch on that and write myself a note. What we call a prehab, and do just enough to it to be able to take money out and use that money to invest in. So those are just some things to think about, right? And then if all else fails, you get you a partner, but you put the terms in writing. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And then you have it drawn up or drafted by an attorney or reviewed by an attorney. See where you need to add anything in there. Because once it's in writing and everything is all well and good on paper, you can go on about your business in confidence, knowing that you're following the rules, I'm following the rules. Okay? So maybe they have the credit, you have the resources, meaning the wherewithal to do the work. Maybe they have the wherewithal and the resources to do the work. You have the money. How can you partner together to do that? So I want you to be thinking about that. You got a homework assignment coming up. I hope this was great information to you and that it was helpful. I know it was. So on to the next assignment.